Good morning from Nairobi. Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier, and thanks for stopping by. Moving on to Africa. I like this from PD Williams GWU saying, I like the line from Africa Program's Alex Vines about Russia. Consultants have been increasingly offering their electoral expertise, presumably to African pseudo-democrats, says Paul. 5th of December, I was writing about Putin, and I said at this moment President Putin has Fortress Europe surrounded. The intellectual father of the new zeitgeist that propelled Brexit, Le Pen, Five Star in Italy, Geert Wilders in the Netherlands, is Vladimir Putin. In the Middle East, it is Putin who's calling the shots, I said. And in quite a delicious irony, it looks like he has pocketed OPEC as well. Read this extract and you can see he's now making a move on Africa. Why I called him in another article a geopolitical grandmaster. Bloomberg, Mnangagwa is opposing officials pushing Zimbabwe crackdown, officials say. He is being defied by members of his ruling party who are orchestrating a violent crackdown after demonstrations this month, despite his vow to act against abuses by the security forces, government and military officials said. The reform agenda is being opposed by hardline elements within ZANU-PF and the state, said Piers Pigu. They say it's a liberal agenda that will not provide a broad-based solution for Zimbabweans. Those who are defying Mnangagwa know that he will take the blame either directly or because he's failing to rein them in. The president's only hope is to persuade them to accept harsh economic reality or fire them. Good cop, bad cop routine, Pigu added. The petrol price hike was the proximate cause and ignited the already dry tinder on the ground, which was something Pierre said as well. 8th of October, I wrote about how one domino that has suddenly tipped over is Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe is now to allow dollar trading to ease a dire currency squeeze, will allow companies and individuals to trade dollars electronically as it looks to ease a crippling scarcity of foreign exchange that sent the economy into meltdown. The value of bond notes and RTGS dollars have plunged, even though the government says they should be worth the same as real dollars. Bond notes now trade at $3.76 on the black market, according to MarketWatch. I called it voodoo economics in October last year. And then there were $9.3 billion in banks compared to $200 million in reserves, and obviously that has now become even more extreme. Choppy's lost stock valued at $2.5 million, while assets worth $6.5 million were destroyed after 9 of its branches were attacked by looters. The company has located these shops within the communities. What was noticeable at the time of the coup d'etat, there was hardly any damage in the streets. What is noticeable now is that there is plenty of that. I wrote on the 21st of January that there is a correlation between high inflation and revolutionary conditions. Zimbabwe's inflation rate hits 290%, according to SABC News Online. Second highest in the world after Venezuela. Addressing soldiers this month, Bashir, a 75-year-old former paratrooper who seized power in a coup in 1989, warned the rats to go back to their holes. At least 30 people have died, but others say 45 have been killed. The current protests represent the biggest and deepest challenge to Bashir's rule because they indicate that the crisis has reached a new level. We say to the youth, this country is yours, protect it, and if it goes up in smoke, we won't be refugees, we will die here, he said this month. Then on the 21st of Jan, I was writing about Kinshasa, Khartoum, and Harare. And there is a famous song, Sudanese song, which is, "We sing in our prisons as you tremble in your castle." I also wrote that Bashir is a political Harry Houdini, otherwise he would not have lasted more than 3 decades. But it is clear these are the last days or end times. Zambia finally gets some zoom as its Eurobond returns top 10%, up 10.3% since the end of December, more than any of the other 75 nations in the Bloomberg Barclays Emerging Markets US Dollar Sovereign Bond Index, if you exclude the defaulted bonds of Venezuela, which have soared on hopes of regime change, as you saw at the beginning of this podcast. This was also something I was referencing in the article I wrote over the weekend about, the downshifting of US interest rate expectations, boosting the prices of emerging and frontier market bonds. South African all shares up 1.95% year to date. Dollar rand 13.667. Egyptian pound 17.6267. Nigeria's main opposition party has halted its presidential election campaign for 72 hours, weeks ahead of the vote in protest at the suspension of the country's most senior judge by President Buhari. Mail and Guardian's calling it a knife-edge election again. His name is Jubril al-Sudani, they said. The real president is dead. A clone, an imposter imported from Sudan, has been running the country for months. This is a story that's been playing in Nigeria. But the bottom line is they're saying it's a very close-run election, and therefore that is a recipe for contestation and dispute. Nigerian all shares down 0.27% year to date. Ghana's SEDI eyes record low as the bank cuts rate to a 2013 low. The cut was not expected by any economists polled by Bloomberg. Cut its main interest rate to 16% from 17%. Ghana Stock Exchange is down 2.86% this year. Kenya held rates at a 3.5-year low as inflation set to ease. MPC said economic growth is expected to remain strong in 2019. IMF sees the economy expanding 6%. National Treasury estimates 6.1%. Private sector credit grew at just 2.4% in 2018, lowest rate since 2016, but expected to strengthen in 2019. The shilling has strengthened to 100.7. As I wrote over the weekend, every January, every year, every forecast about the shilling predicts a 10 to 15% devaluation. It's mind-boggling. They're wrong every year, except for 2011 is the last one I can recall. And they're going to be wrong again. And as I said, a move below 100 would catch a lot of people off guard. Key levers with regard to the shilling are the price of fuel, which remains subdued, and inward remittances, which surged last year. Nairobi all shares has had a bright opening to the year. It's up 4.82% this year. My article was reasons for optimism. I was touching on Kenya. I was touching on the terror attack. I touched on the politics, the shift lower in US rate expectations, and why the Treasury would be well advised to seize the moment and from a tactical perspective and sell some bonds. Looking at East African breweries' results, which were strong and triggered a very strong reaction in the stock market. What is interesting, I came across this from Odipo Dev. The narrative around terror attacks makes them seem like a rare event, he said. However, since 2011, Kenya has faced 321 terror attacks. That is a new attack every 9 days. I was quoting Don DeLillo, who says terror's response is a narrative that has been developing over years, only now becoming inescapable. It is our lives and minds that are occupied now. This catastrophic event changes the way we think and act, moment to moment, week to week, for unknown weeks and months to come in steely years. Our world, parts of our world, have crumbled into theirs, which means we are living in a place of danger and rage. He also said, I used to think it was possible for an artist to alter the inner life of the culture. Now bomb makers and gunmen have taken that territory. That's from Mao too. Finally, if you're interested in looking at the price reaction, it's the last link. EABL price reaction is the second last link on Rich Wrap-Ups. And once again, thank you kindly for stopping by. I'm always grateful.